Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Combat Over Coffee. I'm your host, Mr. Charles. Episode 3 is called Doug Morton, and it is a true American combat story that went sideways initially and then went south. But to understand Doug Morton's story, you have to understand what job he had. He was in the Mobile Riverine Force, which I was in. And he was stationed on what they call a monitor, which is the heaviest of all the gunboats. And he was part of a 3-man crew on a 40 millimeter cannon. So to understand Doug's story, you have to understand the 40 millimeter cannon. That cannon has been around since World War I. It was used extensively in World War II. And then in the Vietnam War, it was retrofitted to fit on the bow or the front of a monitor gunboat in support of the troop carriers. And if you look at the 40 millimeter cannon, it's a large, heavy, dangerous weapon. And obviously, if it sits on the bow or the front of the gunboat, it can't sit in the open because of combat. So it was encased in a cast iron gun turret or gun mount, depending on your terminology. So if you were to look at the riverboat from the side view and saw the 40 millimeter cannon, all you would see is this big, gigantic turret gun mount, and all you would actually see is the barrel sticking out. And inside that gun mount is a crew of 3 men. That's how many men it takes to fire the 40 millimeter cannon. Now, when they used the 40 millimeter cannon in World War II, they were mounted on ships out at sea, Navy ships, and they were used as an anti-aircraft gun. So if the Japanese were dive bombing a ship, they would hit the 40 and try to shoot down the dive bombers. It was a different setup with that because they could get out a whole lot of rounds really quick. But on the riverboats, because of constraints, room to move, a really good crew, a 3-man crew, could get out 60 rounds a minute. That's 1 a second. And the shells they used were armor-piercing shells. Not that there was armor we were firing at, but there were very thick bunkers that the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army used, well hidden along the riverbanks and the canal banks and the jungle. And they knew how to build bunkers. So they put armored piercing shells that could penetrate those bunkers. Now, the gun turret that the crew sat in was anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch cast iron. That was your protection from the elements. That would protect you from small arms fire. It would protect you from 50 caliber machine gun fire. But the weapon of choice for the Viet Cong was the RPG, rocket propelled grenade, which was fired from the shoulder. And that RPG could penetrate easily, like going through butter, that gun turret. And when it hit the turret, it would burn through. And the hole that it made was only about the size of a silver dollar. And then it would explode on the inside. If it didn't kill you, it'd take an arm or a leg off. Now, ironically, Doug Morton and I had the same job on different boats. He was in a different division than I was. So when we got in country, I never saw him again. And it turns out Doug and I were high school friends. We joined the Navy together, went to boot camp together. After boot camp, he went off his direction. I went off my direction. And unbeknownst to the two of us, we both volunteered for the same duty at the same time and didn't know it. And when 180 strangers showed up at Mare Island for training, riverboat training, I see Doug Morton, my buddy from high school. And it was awesome. I didn't know anybody else there. And it was great. So when we got to Vietnam, we were assigned our units. Doug went off on his way again, and I went off on my way. So it takes a 3-man crew to fire the 40-millimeter cannon. And it's a large cannon. It's a heavy cannon. So the way it looked like on the inside of the turret was this very large cannon. And at the bottom of the cannon, on the left side, there was a fiberglass seat with a wheel, like a steering wheel out of a car. And on the right-hand side, there was another fiberglass seat with another steering wheel. Somebody had to control that cannon going left, right, up, and down. So the guy on the left seat, if he's given instructions to move the cannon left or right, he would turn the steering wheel to the left and make the whole turret turn to the left. Or if he was given instructions to go to the right, he would turn the steering wheel to the right. The guy in the right seat, he had a different job. He made the barrel go up and down. And he had a foot pedal right below his feet. So the guy in the left seat is called the trainer. He trains the turret to go back and forth, left or right. The guy in the right seat is called the pointer. He's pointing that barrel up and down. And when he's given the command to fire, he pressed the foot pedal just like on a car, like a brake pedal or an accelerator pedal, and the round would go off. And there's a third person in that turret. He's called the loader. He's sitting on top of the barrel, literally straddling the barrel. And the 40-millimeter cannon took 4 shells in a clip. And the shells were probably, I'm guessing 16 inches, 15 inches long. And 4 of those shells in each clip. So when the command was given to fire, and the pointer pushes down the seat, the foot pedal, the round goes off, and the empty brass casing is ejected to the bottom of the cannon. As soon as the first round goes off, the next round drops in place and takes its place out of the clip. When we get down to the fourth, it's fired. The loader's job is to take the empty clip, pull it out of the cannon, and slam in a new 4-round clip. That was his job. And like I said earlier, a really good, smart 3-man crew could get off around a minute. Now, it was really important for the loader not to miss a beat, because if he got that old clip out and the new clip slammed in not fast enough, and there wasn't another shell ready to drop in when the pointer hit the foot pedal, then the gun will jam. Now you got to spend 2 or 3 minutes recocking the gun to get it ready to fire again. And in a firefight, 2 or 3 minutes is a lifetime. The more fire you put out, the better chance you have of no one returning the fire at you. So you can imagine 3 guys inside this gun mount, and you can't see. There's no holes. There's no windows to look out. So there's a communication process where the pointer and the trainer, sitting in their seats, are wearing a headset. And the boat captain, who is sitting on the aft or the rear part of the riverboat, he's sitting in a fiberglass seat that's above the 40. The view is above the 40. And he's directing fire. And he's going left, 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 up, 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 fire, fire. And that's what happens. If he's going left, 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 the guy on the left is spinning the wheel to the left to make the whole turret turn. And if he's going up, 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 or down, 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 the guy on the right spinning the wheel to make the barrel go up or down. So the boat captain had full authority to tell us when to fire and when not to fire. So that's basically how the 40 millimeter worked. Now, one shell of 40 millimeter probably could not penetrate the front of a tank. It could do a lot of damage to that tank. Maybe other parts of the tank it could penetrate, but it definitely could penetrate the bunkers. And this is where the enemy was firing their RPGs, rocket propelled grenades, from those bunkers at the riverboats. The downside of being in a 40 millimeter cannon was you're one big fat target. And the guys firing the RPGs were pretty good. They knew what they were doing. One well-placed RPG into a 40 millimeter cannon could wipe out all 3 guys. And if you weren't killed, you'd probably lose an arm or a leg from the shrapnel or the explosion. So it was a dirty, dangerous, thankless job. And by the way, there was no ear protection. Nobody gave us earplugs. And you get ringing in your ears real quick that way. So in April of 1968, April 4th to be exact, I was off my operation. And the guy walked up to me and said, "Hey, aren't you Doug Morton's buddy?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Well, I just found out Doug Morton died today. He was killed." I said, "You're kidding." He goes, No, Doug turned 20 that January, so he's 20 years old. In April that year, I'm still 19. I didn't turn 20 till June. And I was devastated. Would he have any information? No. Well, the whole time I was in country, I tried to find out what happened to Doug, how he died. No luck. All I know is he was dead. And when I got home, I knew where he lived. I knew his mom. I knew his dad. And I just didn't have the courage to go see them. I wanted to, but I guess I felt guilty that I came home and he didn't. So I never did go see the Mortons, which I regret. It's something I should have done. The respectful thing to do. So over the years, I thought about Doug all the time. As time marched on, the guy just never had a chance in life. And then about 3 years ago, through the internet, I had a couple contacts. And I got an email one day from a guy from London, England. And he said, "I got your email from so-and-so who got it from so-and-so." And he said, "I understand you were in the MRF in 1968. And he told me about your buddy, Doug Morton. And I think I found a guy that was on his boat, a crewman, that day that Doug was killed. And the guy lives in Florida. If you want, I'll give you his email address. And I said, yeah, man, I'd love that. But knowing what I already know, especially to a stranger, you're not about to give out a lot of information. You don't want to talk about it. So I did email this guy and didn't hear anything. Told him who I was, went to school with Doug, that I was on another boat. I was on a 40 millimeter cannon like Doug. Could you just give me any information about that day if you truly were on that boat? And about 6 weeks later, out of the blue, I get an email. And the guy said, I was on the boat. I was there the day Doug died, the day he was killed. I emailed him back and I said, can you give me any specifics? Can you tell me what happened? And the guy emailed me back a page and a half. And basically what happened was Doug's division had already dropped off the troops, but we're still engaging the enemy on both sides of this canal. Lots and lots of fire. Doug's boat was still in the middle of the canal because it was too dangerous for everybody to get too close. When the boat captain of Doug's boat got a call over the radio that the boat that they could clearly see off to the right was in distress, that there was a bunker thrown at RPGs and it just killed 3 sailors, and that boat was backing out and they needed support. They needed someone to come in and take out that bunker. Now, the Army was already long gone. They're doing their thing. They weren't anywhere around. And there's probably 7 or 8 riverboats having their own personal firefights up and down this small canal. So Doug was in his duty station, straddled on top of the 40 millimeter cannon. And the boat captain decided to come in parallel to the riverbank. They spotted the bunker that the RPGs were coming out of. And they get within 30 or 35 yards of the bunker. Mind you, this is in thick jungle. It was tough to see the bunker. And an RPG was thrown at them. You can see, according to the account that I was reading, you can see the flash, but it missed the riverboat. But it gave the boat captain of that boat the exact location. So he's on his headset. Now again, the boat's parallel to the canal bank. At that point, the 40 was pointing straight ahead. So the boat captain wanted the turret to start turning to the right. And he's on his headset. And he's going right, 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 right. Meanwhile, more fire came from the bunker and other bunkers surrounding. And Doug's boat was under heavy attack. Now, there's other weapons on that boat, and other guys unloaded with their weapons. But for some reason, as it got closer, the turret would not move. It wasn't going right, 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 like the boat captain was saying. And he's screaming into his headphones, right, right, right. I want that turret to be turning to the right. No response. And at that moment, an RPG came through and hit Doug's 40 millimeter turret, head high. RPG burned through it, hit Doug in the head, and that was it. Even though in the letter, the message I got said that he survived the initial impact. When they medevaced him out, he died on the way to the field hospital. So the firefight finally was suppressed. Another boat came in, took care of that bunker. The boat captain, jumps off of his seat, runs across the deck of the riverboat, and opens up the little hatch to get into the 40, and there's Doug laying there. And he wanted to know why you guys didn't turn to the right. Well, it turned out the trainer, guy in the left seat, was not in his seat. Turns out that man had left his post and went down to the well of the riverboat where there were 5 or 6 cots that the crew used to sleep on, rotating sleep. Found them curled up on one of the cots in the fetal position, sobbing. So the turret didn't turn to the right because there's nobody there to turn the wheel to the right. Now, if Doug knew that, and if the other guy knew it, I suppose they didn't find that out, that they realized that guy wasn't there. Because when the 2 guys were sitting at the bottom of the turret, the gun itself, the cannon, is so thick and big that they can't see each other. So it's conceivable that none of them, the other 2 guys, didn't know that guy was gone. So after all these years of waiting, over 50 years to find out about my buddy Doug, he died at the hands of a coward. Now, it's been a couple of years. I'm still sick about it. Guy left his post. He was afraid. Somehow this guy slipped through the fingers of the United States Navy, slipped through the cracks. This guy should have never made it out of prisoner of war camp. That's the kind of guys they were trying to wash out. And he slipped through. And the guy was a coward. Couldn't take it. Scared to death. And it cost Doug's life. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so I messaged a guy back in Florida, and I thanked him. I said, you haven't given me closure, but I'm happy to know the truth. And I said, as far as you know, what happened to the coward? And he told me they took the guy away that day. They brought in a chopper and flew him out. And they found out that he was court-martialed and sent to Leavenworth, the military prison. And he said, for how long, I don't know. He said, but I'm sorry I have to be the one to tell you about your buddy Doug Morton. Is it a combat story I relish? I'd love to hear again? No, not at all, man. I mean, that's it was a heartbreaker. It was just a heartbreaker. And I don't know if his parents got the truth or not. You know, I'm sure the military likes to cover things up. So I don't know if his parents know that a coward took Doug's life. So not all combat stories are good combat stories. There's a lot of victory ones, but not in this case. So I'm going to take the whole month of December off for the holidays. We got family stuff coming up, and I'm going to come back the first or second week of January. I'm very, very pleased with the response I've had. It's not overwhelming, and I think, I'd be lying to you if I told you, hey, thousands of people. It's not that way at all. But the people who have responded and who have listened, I've got comments like it was therapeutic, interesting, heartwarming, heartbreaking. And I'm not sure what I really wanted out of this podcast. I don't know if I wanted emotions to run deep or not. But, as I'm sitting in my office recording this, I'm looking at a photo of my buddy Doug and his high school picture. I never did have a current picture of him. And, every day I look up at them and wish them the best. I just I'm just grateful for the opportunity to have an audience of any size. Doesn't matter to me how big it is. I mean, I've said this before. I'd like to be successful, but if not, that's fine. But there are other Doug Morton stories out there, and they're not all good stories. And I wish he'd died under different circumstances, doing his job, pumping out the rounds, trying to get rid of the enemy, but it didn't happen that way. So anyway, I'm going to sign off and I'll see you next time. And I'm just, again, going to take a break here and I'm going to work on getting an interview. It's been a slow going. I knew it would be. But we'll get one. I'll snag somebody and it'll be interesting. And once we get one or two under our belt, then maybe it'll be a common thing. So I won't see you to 2024. So everybody have a great holiday and see ya.